chosen one. The trial of accusations has come to an end, and you no longer need to live like someone still waiting for the past to pronounce a sentence. I, Michael, stand before you today to lead you out of the invisible room in which you imprisoned yourself for many years. A place where every former mistake was repeated, every failure was magnified, and every moment of weakness became evidence persuading you that you did not deserve anything good. You moved through life as though every eye were judging you, as though one wrong decision could erase all your worth, and as though the people who wounded you still had the authority to write the final conclusion. But listen to me calmly. The past is no longer seated in judgment over you. Its accusations lost their authority when you chose to acknowledge your mistakes, learn the necessary lessons, and continue walking in integrity. I saw the nights when you cried silently over things no one was willing to hear. Some people saw only your reaction, without knowing how long you had been under pressure before that moment. Others retold the story in a way that made them appear innocent, while leaving you with the reputation of being at fault. You tried to explain, prove yourself, and make people see the truth. But the more you spoke, the more deeply you felt pulled into an argument without an ending. Eventually, you began judging yourself. You used the words of people who did not understand you as a measuring rod, allowed one difficult season to define your whole life, and turned moments of vulnerability into a lasting sentence. I know how exhausted that burden made you. Therefore, what is ending today is not some distant heavenly lawsuit, but the authority of shame that has ruled your inner life for far too long. Within that symbolic courtroom, the accuser brought forward every old record, the choices you regretted, the times you trusted the wrong person, the words you wished you had never spoken, and the opportunities you lost because you had not yet matured. He wanted you to believe that your entire identity was nothing more than the sum of your falls. He repeated your failures, while hiding the times you rose again. He spoke about when you lost your direction, but remained silent about the days when you still did what was right. Despite having almost no strength, he exposed your errors while refusing to mention that you accepted responsibility, made changes, and became wiser. This is how condemnation operates. It selects only the darkest parts and calls them the whole truth. But I see the entire journey, and a story viewed in its fullness will never resemble the version told by someone who wants only to make you despair. Beside every accusation stands the voice of truth. That voice does not deny that you were once wrong, but neither does it permit your mistakes to become your new name. It reminds you that you felt remorse, learned how to apologize, repeatedly tried to repair what you could, and accepted what could not be undone. It brings forward evidence you often forget. The kindness you preserved after betrayal, the way you strengthened others, even during your own season of need, the faithfulness you maintained without recognition, and the courage that helped you wake again after days when you believed there was no reason left to keep trying. These things do not erase responsibility, but they demonstrate that you are no longer the person who made those former choices. You were transformed by the very lessons for which you paid such a high price. The judgment concerning you is not that you are perfect, but that you are permitted to begin again. You are not sentenced to repeat your old life simply because you once failed. You do not have to keep repaying a debt through self-contempt, nor must you continue hurting yourself to prove that you are truly sorry. Maturity is not measured by the number of years you punish yourself, but by how differently you live after recognizing the truth. If you once used words that wounded, become someone who speaks healing. If you once ignored boundaries, learn to protect what is precious. If you placed trust in the wrong place, move more slowly and observe more carefully. That is meaningful change. I do not want you to keep standing before the door of the past, knocking endlessly upon a place that cannot be reopened, while a new road waits ahead. Some people who misunderstood you may never admit that they were wrong. Others will continue holding on to the old version of the story, because the new truth would force them to face their own responsibility. You cannot compel them to change their perspective, but you can refuse to live beneath their judgment. The deepest vindication is not when everyone apologizes. It is when their words no longer determine how you see yourself. You know what happened, what you did, and what part still required correction. Accept responsibility for what belongs to you, and return to others the burden that belongs to them. You were not born to carry the guilt that others pushed upon you simply because they did not want to confront the truth. I also want you to release the belief that victory must always mean someone else's defeat. You do not win when the person who wounded you is brought low. You win when that pain no longer turns you bitter. You win when you can pass an old place without your heart trembling. You win when you hear the name of someone who betrayed you and are no longer pulled back into a storm of anger. You win when you no longer need to repeat the story in order to receive sympathy, because you have discovered your value beyond what happened. Righteousness is not revenge. It is restored order. The moment when what was wrong loses the authority to produce further wrong within you. Now look again at the invisible records you continue preserving. Perhaps one contains a cruel statement you heard as a child, one failure that persuaded you that you lacked ability, or one broken relationship that made you conclude that you were unworthy of love. See these things as documents whose authority has expired. They record something that happened, but they have no right to predict your entire future. You can remember without remaining controlled, and you can learn without continuing to condemn yourself. Whenever the old voice returns and says that you will lose everything, answer through the way you live uprightly today. One peaceful day, one wise decision, and one boundary faithfully maintained are new pieces of evidence stronger than every old accusation. Do not rush into the next season merely to prove that you have won. Walk humbly, because a person who is genuinely free does not need to display strength. You do not need to return and confront every individual, nor demand recognition from places that once rejected you. Use that energy to construct a new life. Care for your health, organize your finances, nurture healthy relationships, and complete the things you postponed because of self-doubt. The new verdict must be expressed through the way you live, not only through words you hear. As you begin respecting yourself, others will no longer find it easy to persuade you to accept less than your value. I, Michael, place my hand upon your shoulder and remind you that the final gavel has fallen within your own heart. The case of self-condemnation is closed. You no longer stand there as a trembling defendant, but walk out as someone who has understood the lesson, reclaimed dignity, and become ready to live responsibly. Allow the past to remain in its proper place, behind you as a teacher, not ahead of you as a jailer. You have won not because you were never wrong, but because your mistakes could not keep you down. You have won because after betrayal, you still possess the ability to love. After failure, you still dare to begin, and after condemnation, you continue choosing truth. From this day forward, walk like someone who no longer needs the past's permission to live in peace. The door has opened, the burden has been laid down, and you are free to build a new chapter through discernment, kindness, and the pure strength refined by everything you have endured. When every accusation appeared to have driven you to the very end, the defender rose and shook the courtroom with evidence that darkness could not deny. My beloved, the accuser believed that merely repeating your mistakes, your moments of weakness, and the times you doubted yourself would be enough to close your future. He tried to turn the past into a sentence, delay into proof that you had been abandoned, and tears into evidence of defeat. But he did not know that throughout the years, when you believed you were suffering alone, every small thing within you was being recognized. This was not to celebrate you as someone who had never been wrong, but to demonstrate that even amid pain, you never completely surrendered yourself to despair. There were nights when you cried in silence, hours when you prayed until no words remained, and moments when you could only breathe slowly and hope the morning would come. All of it was seen. The defender presented not only the tears you had concealed, but also the choices no one knew about. There was the time when you could have retaliated, but stopped yourself. There was the moment when you were misunderstood, but refused to expose another person's private truth, merely to protect your own reputation. There were days when you had little left to give, yet still offered someone encouragement, patience, or kindness. You believed such things were too small to matter, but in heaven, faithfulness in darkness has never been insignificant. Every time you chose to continue. When every circumstance told you to surrender, you disproved another declaration of despair. Every time you returned to faith, after hours of doubt, you demonstrated that storms might shake you, but could not completely sweep you away from the path of light. The one who rose to defend you is Jesus, and he did not build his case upon your perfection. He did not deny the times when you were wrong, or pretend that every decision you ever made was wise. His final argument rested upon sacrifice, mercy, and the price that had already been paid, so that the past would no longer possess the right to imprison you in guilt. This means that you are not vindicated because you never stumbled, but because your stumbling no longer holds final authority over your life. You can accept responsibility, make changes, and mature without continuing to live as though you must be punished forever. Grace does not erase truth. Grace leads you out of condemnation so that you can live differently. At that place, every accusation loses its strength, because it is no longer permitted to use what you have repented of to destroy what you are becoming. Then the verdict was pronounced like thunder, passing through every layer of silence. The case against you no longer had the right to continue. Accusations without foundation were dismissed. Curses, others placed upon your name, lost their authority. And every form of condemnation that attempted to make you a prisoner of the past was withdrawn. You were not declared victorious because of personal merit, but because mercy was greater than every mistake. Your record no longer contains only what you suffered. It also records restoration, correction, and dignity returned. The crown placed upon you is not intended to elevate you above others. It reminds you that you survived what once tried to crush you and still possess the ability to continue in humility. I want you to understand the weight of that verdict, but I do not want you held here, through fear that your blessing will disappear if you leave a message. What has been decided through mercy does not depend upon whether you watch an entire video or perform some outward action. Yet, you need to remain aware long enough to understand what victory requires from you. A person who has been vindicated but continues living according to the accuser's voice will not yet experience freedom. If you still call yourself by names created from failure, if you return to seek recognition from people who diminished you, or if you continue punishing yourself for what has been forgiven, you are placing the removed chains upon yourself again. Victory has been established, but you must learn how to live as someone who has been released. You did not encounter these words without meaning. They touch you because you have carried one question within for a very long time. When will the trial finally end? When will others stop misunderstanding? When will the truth be seen? And when will you stop having to prove that you are not what they said you were? I know it felt as though that courtroom continued through many seasons. Some people saw your struggle and believed you were losing. They saw your tears and called them weakness. They observed your silence and concluded that you had nothing to say. They did not understand that sometimes you remained silent because you had matured beyond needing to win every argument. Sometimes you cried not because you were defeated, but because you were allowing what had become too heavy to leave you. Sometimes you moved slowly, not because you did not know the road, but because you were learning not to repeat decisions born in panic. Those watching from outside saw only a very small portion of the story. They did not see the evidence being gathered through the way you continued, living uprightly without praise. They did not know that every attack forced you to grow. Every betrayal taught you to establish boundaries, and every closed door pulled you away from a place that no longer suited you. What they considered the ending became evidence of your endurance. Slander wounded you, but also revealed who truly knew you, and who loved only an image they could control. Rejection made you lonely, but also helped you understand that acceptance by the wrong people is not a blessing. Every attack unintentionally contributed to the testimony that you could be wounded without becoming someone who wounds others. I, Michael, want you to rise from the defendant's chair. Stop judging yourself each night through memories that have passed. You have learned what needed to be learned, recognized what needed correction, and are now being invited into a new way of living. Once a mistake has been acknowledged, let it become a lesson rather than an identity. When a relationship ends, let it teach you discernment instead of persuading you that you do not deserve love. When others continue repeating an old version of you, do not return there simply to prove them wrong. Live with such consistency that your present life becomes a clearer answer than any argument. You must also remember that vindication does not mean you should humiliate those who accused you. The greatest victory is not that they experience the same pain you endured, but that what they did no longer controls your attitude, words, or future. Justice does not require you to become bitter. Truth does not need you to distort someone else's story in order to make yourself appear brighter. Allow what is brought into the light to stand by its own nature. Your responsibility is to live purely, establish boundaries, protect your honor through truth, and stop participating in conflicts that drain your heart. Tonight, I want you to speak to yourself the truth you have been afraid to believe for too long. You are no longer a victim trapped within the old courtroom. while others believed they were watching someone defeated. Heaven was constructing the testimony of someone victorious. Every tear watered strength. Every silent season taught discernment. Every fall, followed by your return, created endurance no accusation could erase. You no longer need permission from the past to enter your future. The gavel has fallen, the courtroom door has opened, and you are being called outside to begin again. Walk forward, my beloved, not with the arrogance of someone who believes they were never wrong, but with the peace of someone who knows old mistakes no longer rule them. Allow vindication to make you gentler, not colder. Let the crown remind you of the responsibility to live uprightly, not of a right to stand above others. Whenever an old accusation returns to your mind, remember that the case has closed. You have been called by a new name, restored, free, and one who passed through the fire while preserving the light within, my beloved. The uneasiness you have carried for so long should not be dismissed. But I want you to receive it with awareness rather than fear or hasty conclusions about anyone. Perhaps you have noticed the difference between sweet words spoken before you and inconsistent actions occurring behind you. Perhaps someone you trusted regularly leaves you feeling exhausted, confused, or guarded even while outwardly behaving as though they are close to you. I understand the pain, because disappointment from a stranger does not cut as deeply as a wound caused by someone to whom trust was given. Even so, do not allow suspicion to turn every glance into a threat or every word into a conspiracy. What I desire from you is clear discernment. Look at what has actually happened, at patterns that repeat, and at how someone treats you over time, rather than allowing your mind to be carried away by things that have not been verified. When you learn to observe without rushing to judgment, you will gradually recognize what is enduring truth and what is only a passing emotion. You have wondered whether you were thinking too much, because whenever you were near that person, you felt a heaviness you could not name. Some conversations left you uneasy, some remarks presented as jokes touched precisely where you were most vulnerable, and information shared privately suddenly appeared where it should never have appeared. These signs deserve observation, but they must be examined calmly. Ask yourself, does this person regularly minimize your achievements? Do they encourage you when you progress, or are they comfortable only when you depend upon them? Do they respect your refusal, your boundaries, and your private space? When misunderstanding occurs, are they willing to speak directly, or do they repeatedly create further rumors through others? Truth does not require exaggeration. It reveals itself through consistency or contradiction in behavior. When you observe patiently for long enough, you will no longer have to guess, because their own conduct will answer your questions. I want you to understand that intuition may be a warning bell, but it is not a verdict. Pain in your chest, sudden warmth, or moments of restlessness may also arise from stress, exhaustion, or old memories being awakened. Do not treat a bodily response as absolute proof that someone intends to harm you. Breathe slowly, leave the place that is overwhelming you, write down what actually occurred, and seek guidance from someone trustworthy. If there are concrete behaviors such as threats, harassment, sharing private information, financial manipulation, or deliberate isolation, preserve the evidence and seek appropriate assistance. Wise protection does not arise from panic. It comes from clarity, preparation, and verifiable action. When you act from truth rather than fear, you will feel steadier in every decision. Perhaps a relationship, once called love, has gradually become a place that exhausts you. This person may use your compassion to make unreasonable demands, cause you to feel guilty whenever you need rest, or persuade you that creating distance is betrayal. My child, genuine love does not suffocate your voice. It does not require you to prove your loyalty by sacrificing your peace continually. It does not use the secrets you shared to make you afraid. Someone may claim that they want only what is best for you. But if their actions repeatedly make you smaller, cause you to doubt your worth, or separate you from healthy people, you need to look more deeply than their words. Do not listen only to what they promise. Observe what they repeat. Remember that you deserve a love in which you can remain yourself, not one that requires endless change in order to be accepted. I am not calling you into an angry confrontation. You do not need to repeat every offense, publicly shame anyone, or force the other person to confess everything. If you do not have clear evidence, avoid accusations. You can begin through quiet but firm boundaries. Do not share private plans with someone who repeatedly exposes information. Do not answer exhausting calls at every hour. Do not participate in conversations filled with gossip. And do not allow anyone to decide what you are supposed to feel. When a conversation is necessary, use clear statements. That makes me uncomfortable. I do not agree with this, or I need more distance so I can think. A boundary does not require a long explanation in order to possess value. When you remain consistent with your limits, you teach others how they are expected to treat you. If that person becomes angry, when you begin protecting yourself, their response will give you further information. Someone who genuinely loves you may feel hurt or fail to understand immediately, but over time they will learn to respect you. Someone accustomed only to control often sees every boundary as rebellion, yet you must also remain fair. Do not treat every expression of discomfort as proof that they are evil. Observe whether they can accept responsibility, make changes, and respect you consistently over time. Mature discernment does not divide people into entirely good or entirely bad. It helps you recognize that someone may possess admirable qualities while still not being safe enough to receive your complete trust. Your maturity lies in choosing an appropriate distance, not in trying to change them. Your tears at this time are not evidence of weakness. They may be release after a long period of persuading yourself that everything was fine. Perhaps you repeatedly defended that person, explained their behavior, and blamed yourself for feeling uneasy. When you begin admitting that a relationship may not be as healthy as you hoped, sorrow is natural. You are not grieving only the person. You are also grieving the image of who you believed they would become. Allow yourself to feel pain without turning it into hatred. Truth may bring tears, but it also opens a road back toward peace. Through that process, you will gradually learn to love yourself more, instead of focusing only upon keeping someone else. I want you to remember that you do not need to live as though you are being hunted. Not everyone who speaks your name has harmful intentions. Not every phone call conceals a plan, and not every unnatural smile is a trap. If you experienced betrayal before, your mind may become excessively watchful in order to protect you from being wounded again. Respect that mechanism, but do not let it rule your life. You can remain cautious while preserving calmness and observe without condemning. When something is unclear, slow down. When you have facts, act. When emotions become too strong, ask a neutral person to help you examine the situation. This balance will keep you from losing peace over things that remain uncertain. The sacred intervention you need does not have to appear as a dramatic scene. Sometimes it is the moment when you find enough courage to stop responding to an invitation that makes you uneasy. Sometimes it is a conversation that helps you notice contradictions you once overlooked. Sometimes it is the arrival of a trustworthy person who reminds you that you do not have to continue enduring alone. I stand beside you not to feed panic, but to strengthen wisdom. My sword does not represent revenge. It symbolizes the ability to separate deception from truth, fear from intuition, and dependence from genuine love. When you trust this guidance, you will no longer feel lost within uncertainty. Therefore, tonight do not remain awake, trying to discover who is saying, "What about you?" Close the conversations that throw your mind into confusion. Put your phone down and allow your body to rest. Write down 3 things you know with certainty, 3 things you are only assuming, and 3 practical steps you can take to protect your peace. This distinction will help you avoid mixing facts with anxiety. If something must still be faced tomorrow, you will do so with a clearer mind. You do not need to decide everything in one night, but neither must you continue denying patterns that have repeated for too long. Every small step you take today contributes to greater stability. Tomorrow, I am here to remind you that you have the right to choose who may come close, who should remain at an appropriate distance, and who should no longer have access to private parts of your life. You have the right to change the level of trust you offer when someone's conduct no longer deserves what was once given. You can forgive without returning to the way things were, wish someone well while remaining distant, and protect yourself without becoming bitter. Let truth guide you, evidence strengthen your decisions, and peace confirm your steps. What quietly drained you will lose its power when you stop protecting it through denial. You are learning to recognize what is unhealthy while preserving gentleness, and that is the strength that will keep you from being easily led by fear or false words again.